Hey y'all, I'm Elisa, the Scrappy Wife behind ScrappyWife.com, and today I have a faith journal process video for you. I am working through the devotional In the Night Season from By the Well for God, and today I will be working on day 7. So I just wanted to show you, I already did my notes, a little bit of decorating on that page, but not a lot, and now I'm going to reflect on those and create my art entry over here on the front side of this page. So I will definitely list everything that I use down below in case you are interested in checking that out. Otherwise, I will put you on fast forward. Let's go. All right, so I knew that I wanted kind of a cluster of these hanging lanterns. I loved this pendant light. I think it's so beautiful. And so I'm picking out 3 of the different papers from the set that was released to go within the night season that have kind of a more solid background. Now I realize they're all patterned, but that's okay. I didn't want it too busy or graphic, just the kind of color feel of what those pages were. And I'm going to use one of my favorite techniques when I'm stamping on these pattern papers, especially when it's a dark color. And I'm actually going to use clear embossing powder over top my VersaFine Onyx black ink. So you can see I stamped 3 versions of that pendant and just very carefully putting some clear embossing powder over the top, knocking off the excess onto a piece of paper, and then I will funnel that back into the embossing powder jar and move on to the next sheet. So what happens is when you emboss it, the powder melts. So right now it looks like I'm knocking back the black some because when I put the powder on, it ends up looking cloudy, almost gray. But once it melts and is clear, then it gives this beautiful shine. It adds just a little bit of texture, like this little bit of raised texture, and it really makes the stamped image stand out even more when you have a very busy patterned paper. The other thing that it does is this pattern paper has a slight gloss to it. I wouldn't say it's like a glossy paper, just a little bit of a shine. So this really locks in that stamped image. So it's something I do a lot when I'm working with the By the Well for God paper that I love so much. I will often do some embossing over the top of it when I'm wanting to stamp along with it. All right, so now I'm going to melt it using my Ranger heat tool. This has got to be one of the most satisfying things to do in all of paper crafting is melting embossing powder. Look how cool it just looks, like it turns this jet black, and you're going to see a little bit of a shine to it. I just absolutely love how these come out, and I just kind of imagined this like cluster of all of these colorful lights, kind of lights in the dark, and I liked bringing in the pops of color. I love that these are kind of imperfect lanterns. So they even have the little vintage kind of speckles on them already, just the stamp does, and I think that is such a fun detail in this particular stamp set. And I may have forgotten to mention, this is the stamp set that comes with the devotional kit. So it's called In the Night Season. It comes as a stamp set that is part of the devotional kit In the Night Season. So I will trim all of these out. I'm going to skip ahead and not make you guys watch me trim these out. But the plan is to kind of cluster them at the top of the page as if they're all hanging in one big group together. I also opted to put something in the background. Before I start putting these on the page, I want to create just a little layer in the background. So I'm going to pull out the clock stencil that was available this month, and I think it is so cool. Love, love, love it. I'm going to protect my work surface, pull out my distress oxide and my domed sponge from scrapbook.com, and just brush through the stencil a little bit. I'm not looking actually for the defined images of the clocks. This is very much going to be a background, so a lot of it gets covered, but I just thought it would be great to use the stencil, have that imagery there, and just get the impression of those clocks. I'm using the Distress Oxide Dusty Concord, which matches super well with this kit, and now I'll bring it down to the bottom. Now, the image up top ended up being a little more rectangular than I had intended. I kind of wanted the diagonal, and it just didn't work out like that, but that's okay because I'm going to come in. This is the new pink color from Distress, and it's Quiche Flamingo, which I think is super pretty. It's a very vibrant, bright pink, which I love. And I'm using it to kind of knock off the edges of that purple, if that makes sense. So I blended it out and on the sides, especially in that top left corner, over top the image to try to create more of a diagonal feel. You can see I kind of did the swoop to break up what I felt looked like too much of a rectangle. All right, as I start to cluster these up at the top, I'll adhere them off camera, but let me just read to you the verse that I'm focused on. It is Psalm 73, verse 26, where it says, "My flesh and my heart may fail, but God is the strength of my heart and my portion forever." And the focus of this particular day of the devotional was the fact that suffering is going to come. It happens in this life. And how are we as Christians going to carry through it and shine a light through that suffering? And I just loved the phrase that Judy wrote in the devotional where it says, "Suffering can touch all of life, but so can God." And that's just a wonderful reminder that there is no suffering that you are enduring that God is not aware of and is not keeping track of and is not walking with you through. And so I love that no matter what's happening, we can always find our hope in God because He's a God that is right there with us in every moment. Okay, this is from the Lights of Hope stamp set, and this is a little mason jar that has a light bulb inside and the phrase, "God sees me," which was really the focus that I wanted to kind of track in this particular artwork, that no matter what is happening, God sees me, God sees the suffering, God sees pain, and He is right there with me, and that will forever give me hope because I will never be alone in my suffering. I am doing the same embossing technique with this particular image, and actually I won't end up using this whole image. I'm going to paper piece it together, which means when you stamp the image multiple times, cut out those pieces and then piece them together to kind of create this dimensional image. And that's what I'm going to do for this particular entry. So I'm going to stick that over on the side and then take my attention to the bottom of this entry. So I originally wasn't going to put anything on the bottom, but because the top left ended up being so heavy with all of those pendants, I decided it really needed something to anchor on the bottom. So I'll take the scrap of this dark purple just to kind of give it that darkness. Like I said, an anchor at the bottom to balance out everything that was going on in the top left. So I have my little anchor right there. I know I'm going to want that particular image, but I'm going to piece it. So what I'm going to do is stamp it directly on the page, and you'll see me trim it out later to add some dimension to this jar. But I wanted the jar to be clear, like I wanted you to be able to see through it, and so I didn't want to use that solid pink piece. For the next step, I'm pulling out some of the florals that were in the ephemera pack. This one is usually meant to be a tab, but works really well to layer in as a floral, which I really like. I'm trimming out some of the extra white border that is around the florals. It comes with a pretty good white border, and sometimes I keep it and sometimes I don't. It just depends on whether I'm wanting that particular ephemera piece to pop off or if I'm wanting it to kind of blend in with this page. And so for this particular one, the white was a little bit too much just because I didn't have a lot of white left on the page after I had done the Distress Oxide blending in the background. So trimming that out, cutting it in half, and that way I can use the other half at another point, and then I'll continue to trim this one. So I'm kind of alternating between the big bold flowers that were part of the tabs and then these kind of more detailed floral clusters that come in the kit. These are just the colors, you guys. The colors are just so beautiful and rich and bold, and I love them. And this pink and this purple is just, it's all the things. I love it, love it, love it so much. Okay, I'm trimming out this purple one, and I'm struggling, you guys, because I was trying to not have these two purple flowers together. So I have my pink, my purple, and then I wanted to use the other half of the purple, and then this one wasn't pulling up, and then I was just, it was a lot of things. So I ended up having to use that second cluster, and I just saved the other two halves of the clusters because I feel like I'll be able to use them in another entry. Okay, next step is to trim this particular mason jar out. Like I said, it's the same stamped image, and I did the clear embossing powder over top the black ink. And what I'm going to do is just trim out the top and the light bulb and the word God. And I'm being really careful. I've sped this up a lot, and I want it to be as close of a trim as I can. And then what I'll end up doing is adhering it over top of the stamped image that's on the page. And you can see it just adds some fun dimension to it, makes it seem a little bit more like a 3D image right over the top. And I'm going to pull out my acrylograph gold marker. So the gold one is from one of the subscription boxes. This might be the Valentine's box. And I'm adding it in and coloring in where the light bulb is so that the light bulb looks gold, and then the word God pops out even more because of the contrast of the gold and the pink. So I'm being careful. The embossing really makes it easier to color in the stamped image, in my opinion, just because it kind of raises the edge. It makes like a little trough, almost a very gentle one, but a little place where the acrylic paint can be. So coloring that in, super careful, and then I'll just hit it with my heat tool to make sure that it's dry before I keep going. Once that is ready, I'm going to pull out my lettering pen. I am taking inspiration from the word hope that was one of the mini stamps available. I forget if it was one of the extras or a bonus stamp, but it says hope and it has a planet in the background. And I thought of using that, but I ended up deciding I'm just going to hand letter the word hope with my Tombow lettering pen, my very favorites. I just had to order another set. I'm going back through to make sure the downstrokes are nice and bold. So I'm going to hand letter that and then come back with the stickers that are in the kit that's have the florals in the background. And I'm going to finish out the phrase, I have hope because, and then of course it's finished with God sees me. I have hope because God sees me in everything that I do, and he knows what I need, and he knows what I'm suffering, and he is right there. And once I finish that, then I'll add just a little bit at the top, a little bit of journaling. Like you saw in the beginning, all of my notes and things are on the opposite side of this page. So the goal for this was just to do a little bit of artwork representing what I had taken from the devotional. So I'll add a few lines and then add the phrase, suffering can touch all of life, but then so can God. Working in this disc-bound system has really helped me kind of have some more room for notes and allowed me to try a few things in the art half of it that I wouldn't normally get to do in my Bible. So I've definitely really enjoyed it. Just a heads up, all of the supplies I used are linked down below. Some of those are affiliate links. They don't cost you anymore, but they do go a long way to supporting this channel. I also want to give a special shout out to my YouTube members. If you are interested in joining that group, just check out the join button below. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and consider hitting that subscribe button as well as the bell notification button. I hope that you have a fabulous day, and as always, keep it creative.